This is Gemara Metziah, Daf Kof Beis, and today's shir has been generously sponsored by a close friend, someone who's been learning together with us for a very long time. L'zecher Nishmas Yisrael Meir ben Tzvi Halevi on his first yard site, B'siyata D'Shmaya, which is going to be on Erev Yontif in another 2 days. B'siyata D'Shmaya, the Schos HaTorah, Talmud Torah Kenegei Kulam, as we prepare for Shavuos. Should be an incredible schos aliyas neshama for Yisrael Meir ben Tzvi Halevi. B'siyata D'Shmaya should be a Meilat Yishar and a nechama for his entire family. We pick it up at the bottom of Kuf Aleph Amid Beis at the Mishnah. The Mishnah is about 10 lines from the bottom, and we continue discussing rentals of properties. The relationship between the maschir and the soicher, the landlord and the renter, etc. Says the Mishnah, Hamaschir ba'is l'chaveiroi. If someone rents a house to his friend, Hamaschir chayiv v'deles. The maschir, the landlord, is obligated to provide a door, binagar, which is a bolt, minnows, a lock, different components that lock the door, ubachol davar, and anything shemaisa uman, that is required by an uman to create. Non-maisa uman entities, the renter does on his own. Part B of the Mishnah. Hazevel shabal habayis, manure that is now in the fields that is found in this rental agreement, goes to the balabayis, to the landlord, and he can fertilize things with it. Vein l'seicher. Ella, what does a seicher get? Hayotzim min hatanor min hakirayim bilvad. Only that which comes out of the tanur and the kirayim, ashes and whatnot, which are also fertilizer type entities. Says the Gemara, Tanur Rabban, Hamascher b'is l'chaver mascher chayiv lahamid lo yitzlasais leftech b'chalana. He says the price a little bit more elaborate. The mascher has to give the windows, the doors, for the house. Leftech b'chalana. He's to open up windows. L'chazik lo yitikra, to strengthen the ceiling. Lisvech lo yikaira, to support the beams. V'soicher chayiv lasas lo yisulam lasas lo ymaiko lasas lo ymarzev. The seicher, the renter, has to put up the ladder, has to put up the fence along the roof, has to put up the marzev, the gutter along the roof, and to plaster the roof. So the Brisa gives us a few more details. What is called Maisa Uman, that the seicher will, that the maschir, the landlord, will be chayiv. What is not, that the seicher will be chayiv. Ask the Gemara, Ba'i minei Rav Sheshes. 3 lines from the bottom, Mezuzah almi. Who is obligated to put up a mezuzah? Says the Gemara, mezuzah. Hadari, on the renter. So says the Gemara, which is an important klal, yisoid, a rule that sometimes is, we'll call it forgotten, that the renter, that the one who's living in the property, he is the one that is obligated on the mezuzahs. Says Gemara, no, that wasn't my kasha. The place on the mezuzah. Who has responsibility for the place of the mezuzah? And the question here is, particularly explains Rashi, what if it's not so simple to put the mezuzah up? Like in a stone house, like in a stone doorway, which are often the cases, and you got to start cutting holes and putting in the mezuzah. Who is the one that has to incur that cost? Is that on the maschir or is that on the seicher, the renter or the landlord? Amlu Rav Shisha Tanitua, Davar Shein Maisa Uman, in the last line, so Vainam Yilav Maisa Umanhu, and therefore the seicher, the renter, has to do it. Efsharhu, what is the reason? Because Efsharhu, Begufta de Kanya, you can put it in a reed tube and hang it on the doorpost. You don't need to really do a Maisa Uman and start cutting open the stone walls, because it is possible to get the mezuzah up without utilizing such tactics. Therefore, it is the seicher that is obligated. Continues the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan, Hamascher b'is l'chaveroi, ala seicher lasa isleim mezuzah k'sheyotzei. a very important halach. When one leaves a property, lo yitzlenu biyadai v'yayitzei, you're not allowed to take the mezuzahs with you, but if you're renting from a guy, then yes, no, because you don't want to leave it in the power of a guy. And this is the reason why such a severity is according to this halacha. Says the Gemara. You just told me you're allowed to take it if you're renting from a guy. Says the Gemara. Rav Sheshes, Areish is talking about a regular case, so it's quite scary to take mezuzahs with one when one leaves, and that is the reason why one is obligated to leave them. Now there are ways around it. If one wants to check the mezuzahs, perhaps one is allowed to have the new renter is obligated to actually pay him for them because the lemaisa they're his, but you do not take off your mezuzahs when you leave. You ask a shayla. Continues the Mishnah, Zevel shal balabayis v'in l'soichel yis min hatanor umin hakirayim bilvad. Says the Gemara, what is this first case of the Mishnah of the Zevel? B'may eskinon ilema b'chatzir. If we're discussing with a chatzir to ager leila soicher that he rented particularly the chatzir and the house, v'tarei to soicher, and the oxen in the chatzir go as well to the tenant, to the renter. Says the Gemara, Amay shel balabayis. So what's the reason that the manure found in the field goes to the balabayis? Ella, you know what the case must be. B'chatzir deloy agir l'seicher, v'turi demaschir. You didn't rent the chatzir, and the oxen are not yours. Says Mar Pshita. So of course it goes to the balabayis. So what is the case that the Mishnah is being machadesh that it goes to the balabayis? Says Gemara, like 12 lines down. The first line is b'chatzir demascher v'turei da'asu me'alma. They're oxen that come on their own, kamei ba. We're standing in the field, but the field itself, the chatzir goes to the maschir. That's the chiddush, that the field is kaineh, the manure for the landlord. Metziah the Rav Yisrael Chanina says the Gemara. This could bring a right to Rav Yisrael Chanina. Dam Rav Yisrael Chanina. Chatziroi shel adam kaineh loy shaloi midaito. The chatzir of a person is kaineh to him without his das, and that's the reason why the chatzir will be kaineh on behalf of the maschir. Meisvei asked the Gemara, Imamar kol amit kol mitzios sheyava l'toich hayom. If someone says all the mitzios, all the items that fall into my field today, Tiknuli chatzayri, let my chatzar acquire them. Loyamer klum, it's nothing. V'misa, but based on what you just said, Rav Yisrael Chanina, chatzir shaladem kain shleimi daito. Why is it lo say klum? Of course, his chatzar should be kaina. Amay lomer klum. Explains the Gemara. My skin of a chatzar she'ina mishtameres. Ihachi, 1 second. If it's not a guarded chatzar, ima sefer. The sefer says yatzal lo sham Metziah be'ir dvar of kayamim. It says if Yatzla Shem Metziah Be'er, excuse me. But if he finds out, went out in the city that he found something, Dvar Kayamim. Who cares that people know that he found an item? It's not guarded. It's not guarded. So therefore, how in the world is he going to make a kinyan? Explains the Gemara. Mivdal b'dili inshimine v'avlei chatzim mishtameres. People, when they find out that he found something in his field, people are not going to touch it because they know that it is his, and that's going to be the case in which he would be koinem. Says the Gemara, another kasha meisvei zevel hayotzim min hatanur min hakirayim. The Mishnah continued that the zevel, the ashes that come from the tanur, the kirayim, have a different din. And similarly, that which one collects from the airspace of the chatzarelu sheloi. These go to the renter, to the tenant. Now, what about the items? What about the manure that's found in the barn? V'shebachatzir shabalabayis. Says Gemara Misal Rav Yisrael Chanina Dam Chatzir Shaladam. Koina leishleimi daitoi kolein ma'avir. So then, if it's collected from the airspace, harelu shaloi, why does it go to the renter, the tenant? Avir chatzirayu, it's avir of the chatzir of the maschir. So the landlord should keep it. Amar Abaye explains Abaye b'madikli. B'shulei praro. Talking about a case where there is a kli attached to the bottom of the cow, and therefore it doesn't actually fall straight into the chatzir. That's the reason why the maschir, the landlord, would not necessarily have a kinyan. Rava Amar Avir Shein Sevel Nuach Lav Kimunach Dami says Rava. We're discussing airspace that is not destined to come to rest, is Lav Kimunach Dami, and therefore, there would again be no kinyan. There'd be no kinyan by the maschir. Says the Gemara. 1 second. Is that what you just said? Pasha to Rava, that which is not going to come to rest doesn't necessarily go to the owner. Zarik Arnachli B'Zezach Zeh Gemara in Shabbos. V'Yatzav B'Bezach Zeh Mau. If you throw a wallet through one window and it goes out the other window and it goes through the airspace, what's the din? Do we say Avir Sheitzav L'Nuach L'Mais? It's not going to rest, but do we say Kimunach Dami? It's as if it did come to rest. Lav Kimunach Dami. So we see that Rava declared this as a Shaila. So how are we saying it's Pashut according to Rava? Explains the Gemara. Hasam Le Mifsak V'Le Midi. Over there, there's nothing separating. Hacha Mifsak Kli. But over here we have the Kli that separates that the manure and whatnot is falling into the Kli. Continues the Gemara analyzing the previous brisa. The barn, the courtyard, it goes to the Ba'abayis. Ask the Gemara, Tarti, why are we saying the same thing twice? A barn, the courtyard. We learn from here. The barn is not included together with the rental. Meisvei in the last narrow line. Yoini Shaivach, the doves of the dovecote, Yoni Aliyah, and the doves of the up areas, Chayavais, Bishiluach. One is obligated to send away, Shluach Hakan, the mother from the young. Vasuris Begazu Yinal they Darki Shalom. Vimi Salah Rav Yisrael Chanina. Based on what we just said, so I over here it should be kind of by him, Kari Khan. This should be something that there's no shluach I can, because it's not ki yikra if it happens, it's in my field. Amarava beitzam b'yetias rubahu dechayiv lo b'shiluach. When the majority of the egg comes out of the mother, that's when it's obligated to send away the mother on the first very wide line. Makani lo kanya adinav l'chatzeiroi. But you don't have a kinyan until it falls into the kind of a chikitani chayavais. So we have a technical gishmak din. The chiyav happens prior, before the actual egg falls, and that's the reason why there will be a din of shiluach haikan. Asked the Gemara, why can you not steal them? As the Gemara, Iman is talking about the mother. V'ibay same another teretz olam habeitz. It moves. Nothing ruba daite eluye. When the majority comes out, his das is on it, and therefore that's the reason why no one's allowed to take them. But continues the Gemara of Hashlam Rav Yehuda Marav on the third wide line. Asr lischais bebeitze kolzman shehem roivet aleim. You're not allowed to take the eggs as long as the mother is on them. Shenemar shalich tishalich esoim v'hodar. And then the pasuk continues as sabonim tikach licha. Even if it came straight into your chatzir, kolecha di'ihu mati zachale chatziroi. But ask the Gemara, whenever the owner is able to be zeicha in the egg, in the baby, zachia lei chatziroi, zachia lei, his chatzir is kind of for him. Kolecha di'ihu loi mati zachalei chatziroi nami lo zachia lei. So answers the Gemara, Yachi, 1 second, Asiris began the darky shalom, Ida shalcha, Gezamalyu, and Ida lai shalcha, Habai shlucha. Answers the Gemara, an interesting teretz, because the lavar shiluachu. Says 1 second, cut the darky shalomu, Hachikamar, Aviv shal kat the chayv lahaslam, and they, darky shalom, an interesting ukimta that we have to make in the Mishnah. And we continue with the Mishnah on the very bottom of Kuf Beis Amid Aleph. Hamascher bayis lechaver l'shana. So rents a house to his friend for a year, nisabra hashana. And the year became an Iber year, became a leap year, 2 Adars. So now there's an obvious question. Who is, we rented a term for a year. We didn't specify the date we start. We didn't specify the date we end. So what do? Says the Mishnah, is Abra la Soicher. The Soicher is one that gains, meaning he does not have to pay for the extra month. He paid for a year, and the 13th month is included in the year. But if you rented it for months, then it's abra then if there's an ibr, then it goes to the landlord. Someone rented a bathhouse, 12 zuvim for the year, a dinner per month. So they spoke out both. They spoke out that it's 12 per year, but they also spoke out that it's a dinner per month. So what do we do over here? Says the Mishnah as we turn over to Kuf Beis Mebeis Uba Maisa Lefnei Rashbag Paskins or Shimon Gamliel Lefnei Rav Yesi Vamru Yachloiku as Chodesh Iber. Because they spoke up both halves, therefore we split the last month. Says the Gemara, what happened in this last case? Maisa Listar. Is this last case of the Mishnah coming to be Saiser as the top Rashi speaks off? Reisha Tana Kula Tesacher Kula Demaschir. And then we bring a story about Yachlaiku. What's going on? Explains the Gemara Chasuri Mechsor Vachikotani. V'im Amar Leibishtei Masa Zuv Nishana Midinner Zav Lachaydesh. That's if you said for a year. That's if you said for a month. But if you said both for a year and for a month, then Yachloiku. You have to add that din into the Mishnah. And then Umaisanami, we have a story B'tzibari Bechashach Mechos B'chaver B'shnei Masa Zuvim. L'shalim Midinner Zav Lachaydesh. B'maisal Neivishim Gamliel V'nei Rav Yesi Amar. Yachlaiku as Chaydesh Hab Ibur. My Rav says, Rav, if I would have been there, I would have said it all goes to the landlord. My Kamashman says the Gemara, what is Rav teaching us? Twice Lashon Achroin. They go by the last Lashon, and therefore, because they said one dinner per month, therefore, it means a dinner per month is 13 months. You got to pay 13 dinarim. Therefore, I would have passed, and it goes to the masker. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Chatazim, the Rav already said, Amar Ravuna, Amar Amri Beirav, Istera, Meya Mai, and Istera is 100 Ma'is. Meya Mai, then you have to pay him 100 Ma'is. Meya Istera, but if the seller said 100 Ma'is and Istera, then he has to pay an Istera. So says the Gemara, we already know that Rav holds that we go by the Tafais Lashain Acharoin. Why would he have to say that then again in the Mishnah? Explains the Gemara. Imi Hasam from that Bryce, maybe in that Bryce he was explaining Kamash one in our Mishnah that we go after the latter language, and if you said both, 12 zuvim a year, a dinner per month, you have to pay 13. Ushmuel Amar comes along Shmuel and he says, "Baba be'emsa achidish askinon." When the Mishnah said Yachlaiku is talking about a case where it comes in the middle of the 13th month. Then it's true. Kula lemaschir. It goes all to the maschir. Baba seiva chaydesh kula leseicher. Says the Gemara, Mi Amar Shmuel. Does Shmuel hold not like Rav that we don't go after the final words he said? Vavaravu Shmuel Damri Tervayu. Kor b'shleishim ani moichelacha yachal achzer b'ya filu b'sachra ina. Kor b'shleishim sa b'sela ani moichelach. Then Rishon kaina. So says the Gemara, we see clearly that Shmuel says we go by the last words he said, like Rav. So why would we be saying any different? Explains the Gemara, sometime misham the toughest. The reason over there is because he grabbed hold of it and now the buyer has the item. Says the Gemara, chanami got toughest. Here also Shmuel's discussing a case in which each party grabbed the extra month. That's the reason why Shmuel's saying it is Yachloiku, but it's true that in Be'etzem he could hold like Rav Tafas Lashain Achroin. Rav Nachman Amar, 10 lines from the bottom, Karka B'chesus Ba'ileo Kayomis. Property is in the possession of its owner, and therefore the landlord, of course, gets the final month because he's the owner. Says Gemara, Hainu de Rav. Explains the Gemara, Avagav de Epech Mepech. The Chiddush is that even holds, Rav Nachman holds, has nothing to do with what you said. Has to do with the fact that the Bailim win. The landlord, the Maschir wins. And therefore, even if he said it the other way around, he would still get that extra month. Pick it up from here, B'siyata Dishmaya.